everyone, and thank you so much for joining this crash course that is on the topic of taking full ownership, facing challenges head on so we can take more control in our life and our business and identify more opportunities to make more progress and see quicker success. So, my name is Elena. I am the Director of Student Success and Engagement at the Coach Certification Institute. I am also an experienced business, life, and health coach, and am so excited to be here with you today. So, what are we covering in this crash course? I'm sure you are wondering. We're going to start off with talking about what the heck is taking full ownership? What does that look like, and what does it not look like? Then we're going to dive into why would we want to do that, and what are some of the benefits? What are some of the things holding us back? Some obstacles, some roadblocks, some reasons we may not be doing this. And then lastly, we will wrap up with some tangible steps that you can take away and implement today if you choose to start taking more ownership. And like I mentioned before, taking more control, kind of getting some of your power back and seeing more success by doing that. And I just want to make sure to mention that there is a free download, a comprehensive ebook that we have created to go with this crash course. It is going to dive a little bit deeper into what I'm talking about today, in addition to a solutions focused checklist. So, something you can literally look through when you are approaching a problem, a challenge, working towards a goal to help you shift into this positioning that I'm going to be talking about today of taking full ownership. So let's start off talking about what is taking full ownership and why would we want to do it. So what that means is that anytime you are faced with a challenge, with a problem, that we are assuming full responsibility, especially when it comes to business, of every aspect, regardless of if we are the ones who specifically did the thing that caused the problem or the challenge. And a big key here, it is not making excuses. Or if we notice that our brain is giving us all the excuses of why we didn't do something or why we didn't work, it's noticing them and questioning them and evaluating, is this really going to drive me forward? Is this really going to give me the result that I want? Or do I want to step more into the ownership role of, okay, this happened. What happened? Let's get curious, let's get creative, and come up with solutions, proactive strategies to keep this from escalating and getting even worse, or to prevent it from happening again. And I'll give you an example that is actually my own personal example. A couple weeks ago, I had a coaching call for myself, and the night before, I wasn't feeling so great. So I took some medicine that tends to make me very drowsy, and I fell asleep. And I woke up at the exact time of the coaching call. I woke up immediately and I had to cancel my call. In that situation, after I did it, I got an email back from my coach. She wasn't thrilled, and she actually had said, "Can you please not cancel the call right at the time of our call?" And I immediately felt bad about it, didn't like the way that she had responded to me, so got defensive and didn't do anything in the moment. But I wanted to blame all of the reasons for me not attending that call on her due to that email that had came back into me. But instead, I decided to take full ownership of that situation. And even before I did that, I started thinking of all the excuses of why it had happened. Well, I wasn't feeling good. I fell asleep and the medication caused me to sleep late. All of the excuses, the reasons. My daughter was home from school. But truthfully, none of those mattered. And I had two decisions in that situation. I could take ownership of what happened, I could apologize, and I could evaluate what could I have done differently here to have created a different outcome. And choose to think more solutions focused versus blaming, complaining, criticizing the other person on the other end of it. And I chose to do the former in that situation because it's always going to lead to a better result. So what I did was I kind of looked back at what happened. I had looked at my calendar the night before for the next day to see if I did have any early meetings. I hadn't set several alarms because I knew that this medication makes me a little bit drowsy. I could have canceled the meeting ahead of time because I knew all of those things. And lastly, this coach that I work with doesn't send calendar invites, which I know in the beginning is something that irritated me a little bit. And I wanted to blame this situation on that. But that's not helpful for anyone. So instead of doing that, I made my own calendar invite going forward for that day and time. So I will never not have it on my calendar again. So that was a simple situation, but it is something that came to mind as I was putting this together. any challenge or problem or anything we're dealing with, we always have at least two options. And usually one of them is kind of passing the blame, giving it away to someone else, or taking ownership ourselves and thinking, what can we control here? What can we do here? What can we look at to produce a different outcome or improve or identify opportunities? So that is what we really want to look at when it comes to taking ownership. So really overall, it's taking that responsibility for every single thing that you are doing in your own life, any effects that are being created, possibly by you or by your team members or your business as a whole. It is being fully accountable for your actions and those that possibly work for you. And always looking at the biggest question here is, what role did I play in this? What can I do here to improve going forward instead of passing it on to someone else? It's also making decisions, strategic decisions in these situations, actively seeking solutions, and being accountable continuously for the outcomes. So, what does not taking ownership look like? Let's go there. And I'm sure all of us have been here at some point because I know that I have. The first one is ignoring the issue. We know we have a problem, but we're kind of sweeping it under the rug because maybe we don't want to deal with it. Blaming external factors, like I mentioned in my example earlier on, it's everyone else's problem. It's everyone else is causing this. And when we do that, we can't find a solution because we're giving it away to someone else. Lack of proactive solutions. We're not thinking proactively. We're not thinking strategically. We're not taking ownership there. And then lastly, not taking any responsibility for improvement. It's someone else's job. So consider a couple other examples, especially if you're a business owner or you're working on growing a business. Maybe you're looking at making a hire, or maybe you are working on a revenue goal and your leads are down. And say in the hiring situation, the hires that you want are just not coming in the door. Again, we have two directions that we can take here. The first one is to take ownership of what's happening, dive into the data, remove the drama, I always like to say, and start pivoting and deciding, okay, these are the actions we're taking. This is the result that we're getting. It's not leading us to the outcome that we want. What can we change here? What can we do? The other option is blaming it on external factors, situations, circumstances, typically outside of our control. Saying things like people don't want to work, there are just no good candidates, or people just don't want the services that we're offering right now, and somewhat of burying our head in the sand and just waiting for the inevitable to come. Both examples, both actions are going to get you very different results. And the question is, which one do you want? So what do you want to do here with this going forward? And I would recommend that you decide to take full ownership and identify these opportunities, work on overcoming these challenges quicker, which gives you back your control and your power in both your life and your business. Which leads us to, why would we want to do this? And so I'm going to walk through some of the benefits of taking ownership in all areas of your life. Now, number one, I already kind of mentioned, but if we blame or give the responsibility away to someone else, that takes away our opportunity to solve the problem. Like the example I mentioned earlier with, let's go with hiring. So if we're at this point not finding any qualified candidates and we blame it on the people not applying to the job, there is nothing we can do because we're waiting for them to change. We're waiting for the environment to change or people to just fall out of the sky to apply for our job. We are not taking any proactive strategic action to solve our own problem. We are giving our power and our control away. That is obviously not what we need to be doing as business owners who want growth and success. We want to be taking all of that back. So that is what I see as the number one benefit of taking ownership. But you also become really good at proactively problem solving. You increase your efficiency and effectiveness by addressing challenges head on. It allows you to resolve them more efficiently and effectively and address and identify the root cause. You become more adaptable when we're looking for possibly new challenges because we know an opportunity is going to be on the other side of that, and we learn how to pivot. We become more adaptable overall. Of course, increased learning and growth. Increased accountability. When we decide we're going to be accountable, we decide we're going to be responsible for all of the things happening, we are going to show up that way in other areas of our life. This is also going to build confidence. When we develop these skills, we're also going to build our own confidence and in turn become better leaders. We're going to build up our resilience as well as stakeholder trust. When our stakeholders are those that we are working with, partners, who, however you want to look at that, can see that we are able to do this, it is a big benefit for us and for them and can build that trust in that area. And of course, it increases our competitive advantage. If we are a business owner or a company, or maybe we're working with business owners, and we are choosing to take ownership, tackle these challenges head on, we are going to be able to move further faster than some of the others in our industry and field. So, what are some of the obstacles to taking ownership? What holds us back? And I would say the number one thing that comes to mind for me and those that I see is it's challenging. It's not super easy to self reflect and look at what role did I play in this, or what could I do here even though it's not my fault, because that's sometimes our human brains goes to that example I gave with waking up late. I was sick. Of course, I woke up late. We naturally go to those excuses or the reasoning for it, getting defensive. They didn't send me a calendar invite. But again, that doesn't give us anywhere to go when it comes to coming up with solutions to improve for the future. So I think that's the first piece is it's harder, to be honest. We have to sometimes look inside and identify and address things that we really don't want to. So that's one piece of it. And a couple others, fear of failure, comfort with the status quo. I think it's called comfortable discomfort. And that's where you're in a place that's not great, but you're comfortable there. To grow and evolve, we have to go in a completely different direction. There's a reason it's called stepping outside our comfort zone, but not looking at things and not addressing problems and not taking ownership, we get to stay in our comfort zone. Lack of awareness, maybe we just don't know that these problems exist, but typically it's because we're not looking. We're staying in our lane when maybe we need to be going outside of it a bit. Overconfidence. Sometimes, if we're feeling overconfident, we may believe we can handle any challenge without seeking help or assessing risks adequately, without getting feedback, without actually looking for our blind spots. Blame shifting, like I mentioned before, if we're blaming everyone else, we're obviously not going to be able to take that ownership and come up with creative solutions or improvements. Resource constraints, resistance to change, of course, and possibly misaligned priorities are all reasons and possible roadblocks and obstacles that could be keeping us from. So, how do we make the change? How do we take more ownership in our personal and professional lives? I am going to walk you through 5 steps that I feel are extremely helpful in doing this. Number one is we have to acknowledge responsibility and decide to cultivate a growth mindset. That is really the key here is we have to decide that we want to make a change. We have to decide that it's worth it to go through that discomfort that I mentioned earlier on because we want that growth. We want to find those opportunities. We want to find those challenges so we can find those opportunities. So the first step in that one is recognizing our role in both successes and challenges, almost looking for what role did I play here? What could have I done better? Where can I get feedback to improve? It's actively seeking that out versus waiting for it. And when it does come to us with a blatant problem or error or challenge, deciding that we want to handle it differently. Deciding that we don't want to make excuses, that we don't want to blame, that we don't want to complain, and we don't want to criticize, that we want to take that ownership and decide we want to be an owner of our problem or challenge so then we can be a solver of it as well. And I kind of already alluded to this, but embracing a growth mindset, viewing challenges as opportunities for growth and learning. The second one is identify and define challenges with data-driven insights. So we sometimes have blind spots. We don't always know that our challenges or our opportunities are there because they're not right in front of our face or we're not looking for them. So regularly conducting market research, Looking at industry trends, looking at what others are doing in your world, in your field, can actually be really helpful. And don't use it against yourself, but look at it as inspiration, looking for growth opportunities that you may be missing. Encouraging self awareness for yourself and also with your team if you work with a team. And we become more self aware by paying attention to ourselves, by paying attention to what we're thinking, to what we're doing, how we're feeling, and the results that we're creating with all of those things. And the key to doing that, like I mentioned, is by paying attention. Now, if you're someone who's working on implementing these things and it's very new to you, you may want to set some reminders for yourself throughout the day to check in, or set some like triggers for yourself to pay more attention, to be more aware. And then with this piece too is clearly defining any challenge or problem that you are facing. When I say that, we don't just want to look at the surface level. We want to drill down and what is the root cause of the problem or challenge, because that's how we come up with sustainable strategic solutions. And one tool that we use in coaching to do that is called the 5 whys. And I, like I mentioned, started out in life and health coaching, and we use the same exact thing in that area of coaching as well, because I always laugh, while the surface level problems are different, a lot of times the root causes are the same. And the way to go about solving for a lot of them is very similar as well. And what the technique is basically when we look at the problem or the challenge and we drill down 5 times, why did this happen and why is this a problem? And you can even take that further. You can go down 10 times, but we really want to get to the root of what is causing the problem, which is usually a symptom of a much deeper issue. So, number 3 is prioritize and set clear objectives. When you have challenges or different things that you want to accomplish in your day, making sure that you are prioritizing them on the front end so you can be more proactive and make sure that the most important things are getting done. Being the owner of your day, of your life, of your business, of your team, deciding ahead of time, like I mentioned in number 1, and then strategically prioritizing and planning. And then the other piece of this is setting clear objectives. So you're ranking your challenges by importance and urgency, and then you're establishing specific, measurable, and achievable goals with clear timelines. And if you're working with a team, that you're making sure every single person on your team knows exactly what those are. I think it's really important to clearly define, but then also clearly communicate and document, and make sure everyone working together has access to wherever you are putting this documentation, so there is nothing that is in question there. So number 4 is going to be developing action plans and implementing solutions. So it's great to acknowledge a problem or a challenge and what we want to do about it, but we also want to take intentional and strategic action so we can drive changes, so we can actually create the result that we want and implementing those solutions. So part of this is creating detailed action plans with assigned responsibilities. Now, if it's just you, I'm a big fan of breaking things out into small chunks and putting it into my calendar. If you are working with a team, making sure that everything has a who and a what and a when. What exactly are we wanting to accomplish, by when, and who is handling it? And even if you work on your own, what exactly you want to accomplish and by when, I still highly, highly encourage that you have that. And again, having a clear deadline in your calendar. And then also points, when do we want to check in and make sure we are on track so we can self-reflect and evaluate all the things have been talking about already today, hold ourselves accountable to make sure that we are working towards our goals like we want to be. And then the second piece of this is systematically executing our plans and monitoring progress and addressing obstacles promptly, which goes back to that whole taking ownership piece. When we see an obstacle, make sure that we are deciding to own it. And if we don't see an obstacle, kind of getting in the habit of becoming aware of what could become one, or maybe what is one that we wasn't right in front of us. Number 5 is continuously learning, adapting, and fostering accountability. Now, this can be continuously assessing solutions and being open to adjustments. This can be making sure that we are being super accountable to ourselves, that we are actually following through on our own plans, but also being open to changes, being open to pivots and feedback. One of the case studies that we've included in the in the ebook, shares some really insightful information on a really popular pizza chain that got some feedback from their customers that wasn't so pleasant. Said their sauce tasted like ketchup and their delivery was horrible. The service and the quality for a company that thought they were doing well until the numbers showed that they weren't was not something that they probably wanted to hear. But they were then able to innovate and pivot and get creative and propel their success because of it. So, making sure that we are always willing to learn, we are always willing to adapt and be accountable to both ourselves and to others if you work with others. So, and if you work with a team, cultivating that culture of responsibility, of resilience, of ownership. And that always starts with us. Whether you are a business owner, an executive, maybe a coach yourself, we always are leading by example. So the way we show up is the way we are teaching others to show up. So I would encourage you to kind of reflect on your role, whether you're a business owner, whether you're a coach, whether you are an executive in a leadership role. Where do you feel that you take full ownership in your role, in your business, in your personal and professional life? And where do you feel that there are areas for improvement based on what I discussed? When you are faced with a challenge, when you are faced with a problem, do you immediately go to blame, to complain, to pass on the responsibility to someone else? Or do you look for the opportunity in the challenge that you are presented? I would encourage you to take a few minutes and think about that, and also think about it over the next couple days. So, thank you so much for taking the time and joining this quick crash course on taking full ownership, facing challenges head on, so we can take back more control, more power, and see more progress quicker in our businesses or a business that you are working in. If you are interested in learning more about the Coach Certification Institute, you can find out all about us at coachcertificationinstitute.org. And please make sure to download the free guide that walks through everything that I mentioned today, goes a little bit more in depth, and includes a solutions focused checklist to help you go through those steps I mentioned the next time you are facing a problem or challenge of your own.